Hi, pretty little lifters. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm going to be chatting with guest Allie, also known as Mexish Mommy. Allie is a certified holistic nutritionist, a health coach, autism advocate, podcast host, and she practices holistic-ish living. She's also a mama, a wife, a former beauty pageant queen, and I love how Allie talks about the importance of food accessibility and how she's open about what she's doing to support her son's autism needs. Now let's welcome Allie to the podcast. All right, welcome to the podcast, Allie.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, we're in your colors. I just noticed.
Oh my gosh, I was just like pink and green. I was like, why am I loving these colors? Oh yes, love it. My two favorites.
I was going to wear pink and I'm like, no, that's her color. But then I green. So I guess I just wanted to be on brand for you today.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. We love this. Okay. So Allie, share a little bit about where you're from. We need to know where the name Mexish came from and give us a little overview of what you do in the nutrition space.
Okay. All right. So, let's start with Mexish, I guess, because that's a whole story in itself. So, we're going to go deep straight off the bat. So you and I were talking earlier about like my last name and all that stuff. And so this is a whole nother podcast for another day, but I dealt with a really crazy stalker situation and it's ongoing and that's like a whole nother story. But I was on a plane in 2019 on my way home from Charleston. And, you know, I've listened to your podcast episode on anxiety and that's something I've battled with for a long time. And going through that situation, I was having panic attacks multiple times a day. It was just a really scary situation. So it made me kind of like not want to be seen online because that's kind of how it all started. And so I was sitting on the plane and I was thinking, you know, I have a message that I want to share. I want to share all these like cool things that are going on, not only in the nutrition space, but like culturally and all these different things. And I just kept sitting there. I'm like on the plane from Charleston thinking like, I just don't want to share my name. Like, I just don't want this person finding out, you know, everything about me because once you like that online, like everyone sees everything. And so I'm like, okay, what can I think of? So my dad is from Cocula, Jalisco, Mexico. So that's my Mex. And then my mom is from Blythe, Northumberland, England. Like both of them born and raised, met in the US. So I'm like, Mex is my Mexican, Ish is my English. And my grandmother on my mom's side, she was from Derry, Northern Ireland. So that's kind of the Ish too. And then I'm like, and I'm a mom, but then I'm like a mommy, Mami. So I'm like, let me just throw that in there. And honestly, like it gave me like a newfound confidence because when this all started, like he had found my dad on Facebook and like found me through it was just such a weird situation.
No.
Me just very honestly, like I just kind of recluse and I'm like, I don't want anything out there. And you see my Instagram page. I'm very like and selective about like showing my kids and stuff like that. Because when you've been through something like that, you don't realize how, you know, I am a law enforcement fan. Like I am so grateful for our police, our justice system, but you realize how there are so many cracks in there and like it is a little flawed. And so it made me sick for a long time. But when I created Mexish Mommy, I felt so empowered because I felt like, okay, like this is my, you know, little persona and I can share whatever I want and I don't have to share my kids. And it became a really cool space. And then my dad has battled, you know, heart disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases for years. And so Mexish Mommy kind of like came about, you know, right before the pandemic. And I started making my dad healthier options that would just help him along in, you know, his journey, like whatever he needed, like low sugar, or, I mean, we've done vegan and gluten-free and all these things. And I mean, my dad's my biggest fan. So he'll always say like, ay, mija, these are great. Even if it's like not, but
you're like, thanks, Pop.
Then with my son, I mean, so I, you know, decided to like dip my toe in the pond of nutrition, became a nutritionist. And then my son, I started seeing a lot of developmental delays in him. And so I'm like, you know what, let me do a little food sensitivity test on him. So many things came up. So I changed his diet really quickly, and the results were profound. So I saw
Wow.
what a healing, tool food can be. Food really is medicine. So we changed his diet, literally changed his life. And I just continued to, go to school, get certified. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, health coach, and in the autism community, I see how important diet is. And so I just want to share that message with anyone that I can. So that is it in a
Yeah.
nutshell, from Mexish to all the things.
I love that. And it's funny because I think I found that's what drew me to you was your name. I was like, Mexish Mommy. I was like, who is this? I need to know who this woman is. And I think
That's
I
so
saw
funny.
like a friend of mine had followed you and maybe she like reposted something. And then I was just like, I saw the page and I was like, oh my gosh, and so I went through your page and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love her content. She seems so cool. And I got
Oh,
excited. I was like, yeah, I was just like, this is great. Um, so you
it's
mentioned
so because
nutrition.
yes. Well, I
Oh
wanted
no,
to
go
say
ahead, go
our
ahead.
little connection, because
Mm.
I think I followed you for a while because my friend Jen's Ayala, I can't remember what her last name is now that she's
Oh,
married,
that's the
but her sister
connection.
Evie.
Yes.
I think Evie, I
Yes.
met Evie, I mean, like back in the day, like we got ready. Jens and I would go clubbing in LA. Evie was the cool older sister. We got ready at her house. So I don't really know her, but I'm like, I remember going to your house in Whittier and like getting ready to go to the club. But that's the connection. So
Oh
whenever I
my
see her
gosh.
posting things with you, I'm like, oh, that is, the connection.
Oh my gosh, that is it. And I love the Ayala sisters. Like they are all so fabulous and they're so great. But yeah, that's what I was trying. I was like, I know one of my friends posted. I'm like, who was it? Oh my gosh, what a small world.
Isn't
I
that
love
crazy?
that.
Like when you're following someone, you're like, how did this happen? And then it's just, I don't know, social media can be so cool in so many ways.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. But so you were sharing a lot about like you getting into nutrition and stuff. And I know like I teach health to ninth graders now and I'm trying to expose them to like different paths and careers in case like any of them are interested. And I know that there's a lot of different certifications out there when it comes to nutrition. Um, can you share with us like what is a certified holistic nutritionist? And what is a nutritional therapy practitioner? Like, what's the program? What is the certification? Like, what's it like?
Absolutely. So there are so many different paths you can take. So I took a very unconventional path. This is when I read your, what's your advice to your younger self? We can get into that later, but it really just, this kind of ties into that. So I went to UCR, graduated actually from University of Redlands with my bachelor's in business. And the path was supposed to be, go get my MBA, work for a Fortune 500, whatever. And it was just never my passion. And so I was doing, just kind of wellness things on my own. And then like I said, when my dad started getting sick and then with my son, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a program because some of them are very pricey. So I said, okay, I think it was through AFPA, Holistic Nutritionist. So I'm like, this one, it was under $1,000. So I'm like, perfect. Because the other option would have been go and study to be a dietitian for 4 years at a university. I have two
Yep.
kids. I'm like, I just don't. And my mom's a nurse. And I'm like, I just don't know if I want to be in a hospital setting, pushing like ensure shakes and things like that. I mean, respect to dietitians all day, every day. But I'm like, I just don't know if that's the path for me. So then having two little kids, I'm like, I need to be able to do this online and do it at my own pace. So I did that certification first for nutritionist and fell absolutely in love. So took a little break from school, and then I jumped into the NTA, the Nutritional Therapy Association has an NTP program, so the Nutritional Therapy Practitioner. And that one was about a year, and that one was a lot more intense. So really pushing bioindividuality, where the holistic nutritionist one was more plant-based, vegan, really push that. So that is one kind of tip that I'll give anyone out there listening. If you're going down that path, really research what these different certifications are pushing, because if you are someone who is all about carnivore or bioindividuality and you take those courses, that's not going to align with who you are and what you want to share. So that
Yeah.
second certification, the nutritional therapy practitioner, was I feel like just more comprehensive. You have a cohort that you're with, you're checking in every week on Zoom, you have lectures. That one was really cool. And then I went through the Sears Wellness Institute for my health coach certification. And I think that was a really good one too, because you can focus on, I think it's pregnancy, families, or seniors. And I focused on families. And that was, I want to say, just a couple months. It wasn't too long, but I feel like all of them shared something different. So I'm really glad that I kind of took those different paths to figure it out.
Yeah. And I like that you pointed out that, the one that was more holistic, like was definitely like, okay, like you mentioned vegan, like certain
Right.
eating pathways. And I like that you were aware enough to be like, hey, like that may serve some people, but like you recognize that you wanted a little more well-rounded and being able to like individualize it.
Right. And I think that's so important. And, everyone is different. We have bioindividuality. And I explain it kind of in a way like my son, when we first did it's called a bioenergetic test. It tests for like sensitivities, parasites. It's really comprehensive, but his looked completely different to my daughter's, like his nutrient sensitivities. So I think approaching diet and nutrition from the lens of like, we're going to be vegan or we're going to be carnivore, or it just puts you in this box. And I think it just creates more stress on the body. And to me, it ultimately dysregulates your nervous system. If you're constantly like, I can't do that, I have to eat this way. Like, I think we just have to be more intuitive with how we're eating.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Like I remember when I started CrossFit and like everything was like paleo, and I gave it a shot and I was just like, this is not for me. My body does not want to do this. I don't feel great. And I just learned like I don't have like you said, everyone wants to put you in a box. Like, how do you eat or what kind of diet do you prescribe to? And I'm like, I don't. I eat things that make me feel good.
And I think that's really kind of like things get lost in translation, because even right now I see there's two different kind of trends I see. So one is pushing like all the electrolytes and all the salt. So I never really prescribed to that, but I was putting like a pinch of salt in my water. And I haven't even talked about this on my page. So this is going to be like news to everyone if they're listening. So recently I had a vertigo for about a year. And in 6 weeks, I went to 26 different doctor's appointments, like trying to get to the bottom of it. And what my ENT thinks it was a couple different things with vestibular disorders, but one of them being Meniere's disease. And that is triggered by excess sodium. So when I see everyone pushing these, kits and all these different things, like right now, my doctor wants me on 500 milligrams of sodium. And I see, all these influencers like, I'm having 3 element packets a day, and
you're like, that's 3,000 grams, honey.
So that's one thing I'm like, that would really send me into a vertigo tailspin. But that's one thing that I just see everyone pushing. And I'm like, I don't think that is right for everyone. You really have to figure out what's right for you. And the other one, it's going to be kind of controversial, but like the excess protein. So everyone is like 30 grams of protein at every single meal. And like, if your digestive system is not set up that way, and you're kind of like on this like gut healing protocol, that might be a lot for your gut to handle in one day. So there's just so many different things. Like that's what I love about your page, is that you put as well, like you have to do what's best for you. And sometimes it's not going to fit into one of these like picture perfect boxes that everyone is kind of talking about.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. So to touch on those two topics you just brought up, electrolytes and protein. I also like got into, I'm like, ooh, electrolytes. I got some, I tried a brand I really liked, but one thing about it is I was very intentional of when I was using it. So on days that I did cardio and I was doing a lot of sweating, I would like, oh, I'm going to have one, but it wasn't like just because. And like you were saying, like, I think some people are just taking it, and I'm like, and depending on your already like salt consumption, like I don't cook with a lot of salt. I don't do a lot of added salt. So for me, I'm probably within my range of like daily recommended.
Like
you know what I mean?
You were sweating, you were having like an intense workout. And I've seen people posting like, they're going on a walk, and then and I'm like, that it's going to create a lot of imbalance. And when I told my ENT, that I was putting salt in my water, and he was like, no, like that's not, I mean, in my individual case, like the salt is not for me. So I think we all just have to like take some inventory and figure out like what's best for us, you know?
Yeah. Even the mention of the protein, because I know for me, like I need to get a certain amount of protein to feel like satiated, especially since I'm moving so much. Like as a PE teacher, also I'm just like hungry before lunch, you know? Um, but I also know that I can't, for example, if I were to eat something, I can't have all of it be chicken, for example. I
Yep,
cannot eat that. Like I can't eat a whole like 30, 40 grams. Like it doesn't feel good to me. So it has to be like different things.
for sure.
And so you kind of learn about like what works for you. And
Yeah.
I remember there was like one time where I toyed around with macros, like actually counting macros. I lasted like a week because it just like does not work for me. But I remember trying to meet the protein goals. It was making me feel sick. Like I was like, I can't do this. And so for the
I'm glad you brought that up too. I was like, ooh, when I said that, I wasn't sure, but
yeah.
you like if I love burgers, like I love burgers, I love tacos, and if they're really meat heavy, like today I forgot what I can't even remember what I had today, it's been a day, but like I'm drinking a protein shake right now and I'm getting in my protein because obviously we know how important, you know, protein and those amino acids are, but yeah, same, you have to do what feels good for you. And if
Yeah.
your stomach is hurting and you just feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's probably not that might be
Yeah.
protein. So I just don't think we can
Yeah.
number on, you know, you should have this and you should have this. So
Yeah. I like to use because I know they do the formula where it's like, you know, like zero point 0.8 to point to 1 kg, you know, gram
right.
per kg or whatever it is. And it's like a good starting point for people. But then I use that as like a starting point and you could kind of see like, do you need more? Do you need less based on you, how you feel or your activity? Because
Mhm.
like I said, there were just some times where like that 1 week that I tried, 1 or 2 weeks that I tried it, the macros given to me, I was just like, this does not feel good. Like I was
No,
like, I can't.
even like this past, so we went to Vegas this past weekend and I don't drink or anything, but it was just, I'm tired. Like we had a long weekend.
Yeah.
This week, like, and I feel like you do things like this too. I'm like not even lifting this week. I mean, I work out pretty much every single day, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do like an hour of cardio and abs like every other day because I'm like, I just want to give my body a rest. And I know that's what it
Yeah.
wants right now. So I'm like, okay. And then I'll, you know, get back to it, go hard next week. But I think listening to your body is so key. And when
Yes.
eating well, you're sleeping well, you're working out, you become so in tune with your body. Like you and I are talking, we know when we need more protein or maybe a little less, or maybe we want to just do some cardio and abs or lift heavy. Like you just really become in tune. And it's a really beautiful thing.
It is. Like, I'm so grateful to be so in tune with my body. And I think people don't have that connection sometimes because there's so much noise and they're trying the latest and greatest. And like, they, you know, and it's like, if you just kept it simple and try to be a little consistent, like, you could start opening those pathways of like connection, you know, and
My social media
feel
is so
connected.
loud. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like I even sometimes I'll just like reset my algorithm like on the way back from Vegas the other day because you know I'm a nutritionist. I'm seeing a lot of it's like eat oatmeal, don't eat oatmeal. Oatmeal has oxalates. Spinach is gonna kill you. Kale is that. Like you just hear so much. So I'm like really in my senora like houseplant phase right now. So I'm like I literally on the way back from Vegas, I was like, okay, houseplant, and I just started like saving houseplants and you know just like engaging with that algorithm because even for
Yeah.
me this is too much and I'm really into Chinese medicine and that's like a whole nother thing how they eat, so I'm like I just have to
Uh-huh.
like you know sometimes just like tune out all the noise because even for me it gets a little overwhelming.
I feel you. That's how I am with like fitness content. And I actually inadvertently reset my algorithm and I looked at a bunch of nail content. It was like all nail content. And I thought I was on my personal account, but I was on like my PLL account. And so now it's just like nails. And I'm like, I'm not mad at it though.
Love it. I mean, because with everything, I was like, we are on our way back from Vegas, and I'm like, sometimes like the algorithm, and I noticed too, I'm like, it's trying to like bait me into like watching all these
Yep.
like, you know, nutritional that are just like really loud. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna look at my house plants and I'm just gonna like
Yeah.
out because yeah. And so for anyone out there listening, you know, sometimes you just have to tune it out, maybe see a professional, see a nutritionist, see someone, but just really just get in tune with your body and follow a really simple plan because it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. And you've mentioned something before that I totally agree with. And you mentioned once that, like, just because you have a thin body, it does not mean that you're healthy.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could share more about your personal experience of this and how you've like left corporate America and like why more like holistic health or just like this switch that you had became a priority for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I started doing pageants when I was like 19. So I did like the California USA system, which feeds into Miss USA, which that my episode on that is gonna be next week. But
I
honestly, I had a
cannot wait. I am like waiting for this episode.
one. It's crazy. I've been talking to some of my friends about it, and I'm like, I didn't realize this was going to be like this like therapeutic experience because I have re-recorded that episode. I'm not even kidding, probably like 20 times. That was supposed to be the
Hmm.
first episode of Dish with Mexish, but every time I record it, I'm like, okay, I don't want to say that. I want to say this, and I want to add this. And being in Vegas last weekend, and you see all these bodies, right? The bodies are bodying in Vegas, like the perfect, boob,
Hmm.
little waist, and I'm like, I'm at a point in my life where I can appreciate that beauty without questioning my own. Like, I'm like, you have an
Yeah.
amazing body, like you look great, but I had an explant. I'm really open about that. I removed my breast implants, and there was a time where like I just was seeking out this perfection that didn't exist, and it was unhealthy. Like, I'll be the first one to say
Hmm.
it. The gallon of water, the Quest bar meal replacements, the I drink Slim Fast meal replacements. And I just thought I thought that's what you did. And honestly, like, it was
Yeah.
like disordered eating. It was like, okay, I was in college. I'm like, this is a really cheap meal to drink a Slim Fast, And I was
Yeah.
all the time. And I had this really eye opening moment I have to share with you. So I used to work at Target, and this is like a kind of like a crazy, I'm going to try to like not over explain this, but at Target, when you return something, they scan it and it'll tell you, does this go in the trash or is it an environmentally sensitive material, right? So if you return batteries or you return paint or something like that, you scan it and it's going to go. I don't know how it is now, but you would bag it separately. It would go in a tub, and an environmentally sensitive, pickup would come and get it like a few days later. So I'm like doing a closing shift, I'm scanning things, and Slim Fast came up. And I scanned Slim Fast, and it was an environmentally sensitive material. So I was like, oh my gosh. And so that was like the first like light bulb moment where I was like, maybe I shouldn't be drinking these. Like, if they're coming up
Yeah.
to the point where we can't even dispose of them in like the regular trash compactor, like, that's a red
Hmm.
flag. So I think then I was eating Fiber One bars. I was drinking Slim Fast because I thought that's what you did. Like, I'm like, this is
Yeah.
healthy. And it wasn't. And I was really thin. I was just naturally thin. But I definitely wasn't healthy. I went on Accutane for my acne. My gut was destroyed. I had all these health issues. So then when I started doing pageants, like I've said before, like, it was a really positive experience for me because I was surrounded by these women who really cared about their goals. Like, they all wanted to win Miss USA or Miss Universe. So they were drinking green drinks, and they were working out, and they were doing yoga. And it really opened my eyes. Like, okay, I got a Jacqueline juicer. I started making smoothies, and it just kind of opened the door to some like a more healthy lifestyle. And then I was
Yeah.
pregnant with my daughter is when I really went down like the holistic path. So I went
Hmm.
from fast to not, it was a long process, but it was just, I was doing my own research, and back then there wasn't a lot of that out there. So
Yeah. And that's something I think that I, you know, I'm going to assume both of us were like naturally thin, on the thinner side growing up. And you do just, I think society sometimes thinks, oh, you're thin, you are healthy. And unfortunately, especially with social media now, like the same story proliferates. And it's like if somebody sees somebody and they're like small, they're like, I'm going to listen to them. What do they do? And it's like, you have no idea if they are healthy or not. Just because they're small or lean or maybe have some like you literally don't know.
it was really so same. I was like thin growing up, but I had so many health issues, and I ate like a garbage truck. Like Hot Pockets, Slim Fast, I mean, whatever, like the most hyper palatable processed junk food, I would eat it, but I was still 00. So everyone just thought like she's super healthy, and I wasn't. But I mean, yeah, you look at these girls who are super thin, and I've walked fashion shows and kind of like dabbled in that industry a little bit. And I would hear stories of how some of these girls were thin. Like, I mean, girls intentionally giving themselves food poisoning, or, there were
Yeah.
some horror stories out there. And I'm like, that is not healthy. And what is that doing to your mental
Hmm.
health? Like, I think strong is sexy, and just being confident in who you are. Yeah, it really is. It just goes so far, because even after my explant, I have a girlfriend who also explanted. And sometimes, we do get in our feels like, are we, do we still look good? And it's like, yes, because just owning who you are and being confident in who you are is so beautiful. And that doesn't have a size. That doesn't have, it's like, are you confident? Are you happy in who you are? And that is so beautiful.
Yeah. And I know you're going to be coming out with an episode soon on your explant, and I can't wait to listen to that too. But like, um, we could like mini talk about it, because then we can direct people to listen to your episode. But like, were
Sure.
there, just because I'm seeing more women talk about this,
Yeah.
and I didn't really know it was a thing, and I'm like seeing more and more women talk about that. Was there like actual physical symptoms you were experiencing that you were like, something's going on? Or was it just a choice that you're like, I think I'm done with them?
So this was actually a question someone asked me, and like when I put up my little question box, and the way I answered it, but this one's not going to go out because obviously I'm re-recording it a million times.
Yes.
But so someone asked, like, did you have symptoms, and why do some women not have symptoms? So I did not think I had symptoms. So
Hmm.
I think what you focus on expands, right? And so I gave the example of when you think of a yellow beetle, a car, one of those little bugs, you'll see yellow bugs
Yeah.
everywhere. And if you think of a yellow butterfly, you're going to see that yellow butterfly. So for me, I wasn't focused on that, so I wasn't seeing any of it. But I look back at my pictures, and I was like, wow, like I had inflammation right off the bat. So when you
Wow.
get implants, your body is trying to protect itself. So it forms a scar tissue capsule around the implant. So it is like, foreign invader, I love you, I'm going to protect you, let me form this scar tissue capsule. So I mean, that gives me chills in itself, because it's like, you do this and it's just trying to protect you. So
Yeah.
off the bat, insane inflammation. And then my health just slowly started deteriorating. Like, it was probably twice a year I would get really sick. So I've had shingles. I have this really cute Harry Potter scar right here, because I got ocular shingles. So they attached to my eye. And the virus, yeah,
Wow.
so I had to, in the ER, they had to like put these special drops to make sure I didn't have like retina damage. So yeah, I have this huge scar, my little Harry Potter scar. I had rashes all the time from my neck to my toes. I'm trying to think of all the other things. Bruising, really severe bruising. I mean, I wouldn't do anything and I would have bruises all over my legs. Really bad bloating, just sick all the time. And I didn't know what breast implant illness was. Like, I had no idea what that was. I
Yeah.
did Facebook, and I guess that's where the groups really like pop off. But I just, in 2020, I just kind of looked at them one day, and I'm like, I'm tired of these. Like, I've outgrown them. I don't want to replace them every 10 years. And that's kind of like how it started. And then after I was in the process, I'm like, wow, looking back, these were causing me so much harm. And if you think about it, I mean, they're plastic, they're silicone, and they're sitting at
Yeah.
98 degrees every single day and just leaching out. So it's, yeah,
Yeah.
uh, do not recommend. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing, because I've kind of talked about them like in my stories before, and I get like mixed things, and I'm like, at the end of the day, like, people can do whatever they want to do, whatever makes you happy.
First,
Like, I know some people who have had mastectomies and they get it. So they, post surgery, and it's like, I get it. Like, I 100% get it.
really,
But I think like it is something that people do need to consider. And especially like depending on your why behind it,
right.
perhaps. Like, I know 100% this is a procedure that I have thought about.
Mhm.
And it's like every
It's
time I
hard.
think, have what happened?
I said it's hard not to. Like, I think
Yeah,
our
of
generation,
course.
if it's like, oh, why
Yep.
not? Like, everyone's doing it, and it's really hard.
Yeah. And I've definitely thought about it before. And then every time I have, I kind of actually, what you mentioned is what I think about. I was like, wait a minute, I'm putting this like foreign object in there. Like, what is my body gonna do? How is it gonna like that? And I know I'm just like sensitive to things in general. So that's kind of my way of like, nope, so there's always like, no, it's fine. You're fine. You're fine.
I don't know where. We talked about a little bit about that stalker situation, and that was in 20. I think that was 2018, and then my panic attack started in 2019, and I had them for years. I don't have them anymore. Like, knock on wood, because you know how panic is. Like, that's the worst. They're the worst. But they were every day, multiple times a day, and that was kind of like the catalyst of like, I want these out, because if there's like a 1% chance that taking these out is going to alleviate these panic attacks, like, I'm willing to do it. And I mean, it went from every day, and now I get one like maybe every couple months. So that in itself, I'm like, worth it. And then just being the example to my daughter, like, that was a really big eye opener. I think she was like 6 at the time. And I'm just explaining to her, like, when I explained it to her, like, it's a whole thing. You'll hear it on my episode, but just showing her the actual implants and saying, like, mommy didn't feel beautiful enough or good enough, so she put these in her body. And that in itself, just saying that, I'm like, this sounds so silly. Like, and as a 6-year-old, she's looking at me like, wait, what? Like, why? Like, and I'm like, yeah, same girl, same. Why did I do this? So it's been an experience. And I mean, yeah, I have these moments sometimes where I compare myself, because I'm like, and I've gained weight since then. So I dropped a ton of inflammation after the implants, but then I've gained weight as I'm getting older. I'm getting older, and I'm not like this 00, high schooler.
Same.
And I love what you post, because it hits me all the time, because I'm like, okay, boobs out. Now I'm like, I'm probably like 10 pounds heavier than I usually am. And that's been kind of hard, but your posts helped me so much, because I'm like, yes, I'm not going to be the size I was in high school, and it's okay. But I think we were really bombarded with, we had Baywatch, Victoria's Secret, store, Special K diet, South Beach. Like, we had so much thrown at us all the time. And my heart for these girls that go after us, they have AI and Instagram at their fingertips. Like, we would come home and check MySpace, and we'd get a Cosmo, one month in the mail. So I think that's another reason with the explant. It's like, I want to take a stand and kind of like give the middle finger to the industry that preys on our insecurities and weaknesses. And you're not going to make any more money off me. Like, I'm happy with who I am.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. But I also like that you were open and vulnerable enough to say that to your daughter, like, mommy didn't think that she was pretty enough. And anytime like I start to have those insecurities, like, that's kind of like what I tell myself too. Like, like it's like I do, like, I try to be a little real with myself. Like, who is this for? Like, who is this for? And like I said, people can do whatever they want to do. But I think, like, as long as you are honest with yourself, and if that's your reason, if it is for somebody else's viewing or whatever it is, but I just think like having that like honest, no ego, like conversation with yourself can help you make the decision that's best for you, Yeah.
First,
Totally.
Same, like, disclaimer, if you have them, you're listening to them, I'm happy for you. But I think for me too, just like, I just knew that I had to do this. And yes, there are times where I'm comparing myself to the bombshell at the Vegas pool, and I'm like, but then I just really have to like dig deep, and I'm like, okay, like, this is not my path anymore. And I was thinking about it today in the car, actually. Like, I don't get my nails done anymore. Like, I haven't gotten them done for years. I just don't. Like, it wasn't some big like, oh, I don't want to get, but I just don't. And I'm like, I used to have acrylics, gel all the time, and now I'm like, fine, I don't even look at my nails anymore. Like, I need this to feel feminine. And I'm hoping that soon enough I'll be like, I don't need, boobs to feel feminine. I don't need implants to feel feminine. Like, I'm feminine the way that I am, and I'm, happy with it.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I do think there is a lot of unpacking for like millennials who were fed a lot of this stuff, and that we needed X, Y, and Z to feel beautiful or to look a certain way. And, like, I'm so grateful for like my husband, for example, where sometimes I do have those thoughts and I will voice them, and he's like, stop. Like, you're beautiful, you are gorgeous, like, you need none of that, and it is just
that's really important,
refreshing.
I've had girls in my DMs, and it breaks my heart, because they're like, I want to get an explant, but my husband says I shouldn't, or my husband really wants me to get Explants. I promise these are DMs I've had. And I'm just like, you better tell him to kick rocks because that is
Bye.
and like we're not doing that. And
No.
I just like a man is gonna do what a man is gonna do, and like you could be Beyonce, J-Lo, like I won't even get into like that whole, but I'm like, you just have to do what's best for you and not for someone else, because yeah, that's like that could be a whole other podcast.
I know. Well, I cannot wait to listen to that one, and everyone else, you definitely will have to check out that episode too. Because we could keep talking about this topic forever.
Planting. It is like, I just want to let all those girls know, like, you're beautiful. Like, if that's the path and you want to do it, yes. But like, really, like you said, like, examine the ego and say, like, why do I really want this? And you're beautiful the way you are. Like, I did a poll the other day on, I don't know if you saw it, like the little question box, like, what do you find beautiful in another woman? And there were dozens of answers and none of them said anything physical. It was like, I love
that
attitude, or when they're charismatic, or when they, and none of it was like, I think it's great when she has a BBL, or, both. It was just like very like, I love this. So just see those qualities in yourself, because that's what people are really looking at, your inner beauty.
Yeah. I love that. So to switch gears a bit, one of the things that you post about that I love, and I know you've done some speaking engagements on this, but like, I love when you post about food accessibility for all people. And you've done posts on saving money on groceries while still eating like healthy-ish. And you'll go to kind of like different types of stores where people that maybe don't have as much of a budget to spend on food can go. Tell us about why this is important to you and why it's important to the community.
It is so important to me. I love that you asked this question. I talk about this in a lot of the speaking engagements I do, because, when you're on social media, you'll see, influencers going to the store, they're going to Erewhon, or however you say it, or Whole Foods. And I mean, it's like $1,000 to shop there, and what they're getting, and these $30 smoothies. And where I grew up in the Inland Empire. I grew up in Winchester, which is border to Hemet and San Jacinto. And on my block, we lived like in a farming community. So we all lived on land. And my neighbors 2 doors down, which was at least a mile away, like half a mile, like far away, they didn't have a car. So this family, they would walk. They had 2 options. They would either walk probably 3 miles to a mini mart in our little town square that didn't even have a stoplight. And so what was their option there? It was like Cheetos, chips, processed foods, or they could walk like 5 miles into town to Stater Brothers. And those were the options. So when I see influencers on here, like, you need to go all in, you need to feed your kids X, Y, and Z, it's like, I think of my neighbor. I think of them, because we also didn't grow up with money. My mom we would drive 25 minutes away to San Jacinto to a grocery outlet before the rebrand. This was like straight up grocery outlet, like dented cans, because she needed to save money. And I would follow her around later, because I knew $100 was our budget. And so I would follow her, and I'm like, Mom, we're getting close. Like, you can't go over budget. And I think of, my neighbor who they didn't have a car. They would walk to Stater Brothers. So I'm like, we cannot put everyone in the same bucket, because not everyone has the same finances, the same access. There may be special needs. There are situations where maybe it's, their parents are fighting all night long, and these kids can't sleep, and, they're waking up and eating Fruit Loops because that's comforting to them. And then they're going off to school, and that's their only meal of the day. Like, we really have to remove ourselves from these situations. And that's why sometimes I don't post as much as I should, because I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I'm like so far past that, like in my old age, but I do care about how I make people feel. So I think of girls that still live in my hometown who are single moms, who are working multiple jobs and shopping, at grocery outlet or maybe on Wick and all these things. And I never want to say, you need to go out and buy this $10 cereal because it's super clean, when a 2-pound bag of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like the off brand at Walmart, is like $3. And that could be breakfast lunch for them. So I think just
100%.
You have to be hyper aware of who your audience is. And there was someone I saw on social media recently, like saying, you need to go all in and you need to buy the X, Y, and Z. And I see the little like Range Rover symbol like behind her, headrest. And I'm like, baby girl.
You're like, girl.
to join you range to go to Erewhon, but
Oh my gosh.
that's not reality for everyone. And groceries are so expensive. So yeah, I
They
hit up
are.
here in Southern California in the Inland Empire. I like going to Winco, Grocery Outlet, Walmart. I mean, you can really find a lot of options. And what I've done is I just kind of cut the frills. Like we have I call them like our meal prep dinners because that's what it is. We get like our macros, we get a protein, we get a green, we get a grain, and they're just very simple. And I think simplifying your diet saves so much money because when you're making all these like super grand meals, I think
Yep.
it gets really expensive. It truly gets really expensive. So I make one or two like fancier meals, but the rest is like, here's your chicken and your quinoa and your green beans, and that's it. So,
Yeah. And it's so important that you talked about like different budgets and stuff, because that is something as a teacher I have had to catch myself when I'm teaching certain things to my kids. And we talked about this a little bit in my health class because um, we were talking about like fast food and different just like quick foods that are cheap, right? And for example, a cup of noodles, 99 cents or like 69 cents, something like that, right? And so imagine you have a family of six,
yeah.
let's say, right? So 69 cents or 99, however much it is times, let's just for math's sake, we'll say it's $6 to feed that family. And then same thing, like you said, I've seen like influencers hop on and say like, oh, families, you can go and you can buy this thing of ground turkey, like a big thing. And I'm like, that's almost $10. Like they could each have a cup of noodles for $6. And yes, is that the most ideal when we're looking at like macronutrients? No, but like when we're looking at money, because that's just for the protein. Now you're asking them to buy vegetables, you're asking them to buy a grain. You know what I mean? And so
So it's
we
so
kind of
wild.
talked about that.
Yeah. I went to Walmart yesterday and I looked at I feel like when we were younger, the brick of ramen was like 10 cents and like cup of
It
noodles
was
were like,
so cheap.
yeah, it was so cheap. And I think now they're like 39 cents. And I'm like, dang, inflation even, hit the ramen. But yes, I totally agree because I see that and then I see like the bag cereal because we would do bag cereal for dinner. Like, we had the huge like off-brand bag cereal and we'd eat that for dinner. So yeah, it's really, you have to just kind of put yourself in those people's shoes because it's really expensive. And we were talking about it in my family the other day. I have a budget every week. We're on like a cash only budget. I get out cash and that's it. Like that is everything. That's if we want to go out, groceries. And I was saying like if we ate like that, if we did the top ramen and stuff like that, we would have such an excess every week. But I choose to sacrifice other things because my
Yeah.
son is really thriving eating this, primarily whole foods diet. So I'm willing to make those sacrifices to see him thrive. But some people just don't have that option, and we just have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's good that you also brought up priorities, right? Because you have the camp where like maybe it is completely monetary and it's like super super budgeted, but maybe there is some wiggle room where like there is some other, luxuries or whatever you want to call them that maybe you can adjust for so that you can have more like nutrient dense meals for your
Well,
family.
you have to be real with yourself. I had a real
Yeah.
conversation with one of my friends recently because I don't have eyelash extensions. I literally, you can see my gray hairs right here. I get my hair done like once every 6 months. I don't have extensions, no eyelash extensions, obviously no nails. I wish I could get facials. I don't do any of that stuff because I'm like, I have to sacrifice right now because my son's health, my daughter's health, like our family health is so important to me right now. And I've seen what an impact diet has had on him that I'm like, who cares if my nails aren't done and my grays are popping, but it's the sacrifice
Yeah.
I'm willing to make because, my friend was telling me like, we just, I'm like, okay, like take a break on X, Y, or Z, because if it's really a priority, then you have to make that sacrifice. Like if you really want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, and it goes a lot to show like we know that our systems need to change. We know that if like, you know, I talk about this with my students. Like, I'm like, do people really want us healthy? Like, you know, just like the elitism of like where you find certain stores, like you're not going to find a Whole Foods in certain neighborhoods, you know, and like just the cost of like organic, and some of it's not really organic. You
Right,
know, and it's like
right.
there's just so
It's
much
wild.
inequities when it
That's
comes to
why
that.
the food inequity, that's why also I'm really passionate about it when we're talking about the barriers to accessing this food. Like where I grew up, it's kind of a rough area and it will never have a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods in my lifetime, like ever. And there's a
Hmm.
Sprouts and that's pretty much it. But it's like Winco, grocery outlet, and yeah, some of these things should be illegal. Like the
Yeah.
crap that they're putting in the kids' food, how cheap it is. You know, even Kellogg, I think the CEO of Kellogg came out recently and said, like, you know, cereal's a great meal, 3 meals a day. And it's like, well, no, why don't you just like cut some of it could be a lot healthier if you cut out some of the crap
Yeah.
put in there. But yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
really hard. It's a hard situation. But I think
Yeah.
the other thing that
Yeah.
is really helpful though if you are in a more, you know, you're kind of looking at your budget and you need to save. Like I think canned vegetables are a great option, frozen vegetables. You know, you just have to watch for the sugars and stuff like that in the canned fruits, but that's a great option. And I think people sleep on that one, but I buy most of our vegetables at Costco, like the huge bag of green beans or broccoli, cauliflower, because it saves a ton of money and it cuts down on food waste because you're just getting what you need out of the freezer and you're not letting it
Yeah.
just, you know, rot in your fridge. So I think that's a great way of saving money, making your meals really just like meal prep meals, like I said, and
Yeah.
around just trying to find the best deal because the tortillas that I buy, I get them at Food for Less and they only have 3 ingredients and they're like $1.99 for a 40 pack. So
That's
don't be
amazing.
afraid to go to those budget, you know, no frill stores because you'll find some
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, I love that. I know. I wish I need to find one like by where my parents lived. They had a couple like Mexican markets next to them,
Oh,
like Gonzalez or Northgate. And I
yes.
was like, oh, I miss having those close by over here in West Hollywood. There's there's none of those. But I used to love like getting like produce and certain things from there. And maybe I'll have to stop over next time I visit them because I miss like the cheeses, like getting cotija
Oh,
cheese from there and like
that episode
oh
we recorded earlier today, my friend lives in Nashville, and I'm like, where's good Mexican food in Nashville? She was like, you have to go to the mercado, like a Cardenas or a, you know, Northgate,
yes.
like in the back at the, and I'm like, actually, that is where the best Mexican food is for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so my final question that I ask all my guests is what advice would you share with your teenage self and teens today?
I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier is I'm a first generation American. So my parents both, you know, immigrated to this country from England and Mexico. And I wish, you know, my parents were trying to do what was best for me and push me onto a path that they thought would be like the most successful for my life. But I think I wish I would have really figured out what I was passionate about earlier on and sought out a mentor and things like that. So if you are kind of like as a teenager feeling like I'm passionate about this or I like this, like you can make a career out of your passion and you can really, you know, find a mentor or just like figure it out that way because doing something for someone else is not going to be fun and it's not going to be sustainable. Like look at me. I had a business degree. I got my real estate license at 18 and I'm not doing any of that because it doesn't light me up. Like nutrition, helping others, that lights me up. And so I think if you're kind of trying to figure things out, like try different things, like go shadow someone or go, you know, just go figure it out and just do something for you. Don't do something because you think that it's going to make someone else happy. Like their happiness is not your responsibility.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that is a gem. And I agree with you because I think that I know there's some teens, as someone who works with teens, like who don't know what they want to do, but like you said, they know things that they like usually, or like something that lights them up, or they're like, I could talk about this forever, you know, like whatever that is, you know.
And I think as parents too, another thing is like whatever your child is really passionate about, don't try to yuck their yum, for lack of a better phrase. Like my daughter is, so I was an equestrian. I grew up, competing with horses, and I love horses. And she's been taking lessons, and she did a show and she hated it. And that was it. And I'm not telling her like, you can't quit, you can't quit. I'm like, she's not passionate about it. I'm not going to make her, do it. So she's very into art and guitar and things like that. So she is doing something that doesn't really get, medals and, a lot of accolades. So I'm actually putting together, and I think it's 2 weeks from now, I made up little invitations and I sent it to all our family members. We're doing like her art expo at our house. So I'm like putting up her art all over the house. And I'm like, because I need to, I don't know anything about art. I could like barely draw a stick figure, but she's passionate about it. And I want to show her that I'm interested in that. So I think that's,
oh my gosh. I love this.
As a parent to other parents listening, like if your kid is really like, I think I saw a video recently where like a boy was like doing his makeup in the dark, and like there was like a Hispanic dad in the background. He's like, Miko, I'm going to love you no matter what. And it's like, whatever your child is into, if it's art, guitar, horse, like just show them that you're excited and you appreciate it. And if it's something that, isn't getting all the medals and the awards and the accolades, like throw them an art show in your house. Like we're literally getting pizza, and she's
oh my gosh,
and dressing all fancy. And it's like, I have to just meet her where she's at. And if that's what she's passionate about, show her like, what can you do with an art degree? Or if you want to go to college, like we're already talking about touring art schools one day, and like, what can you do with that? So I think that's
amazing.
My perspective as, a first generation American to being a mother now. Those are kind of like the two sides of it.
You're such a cool mom. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's such a good idea. Like, I think it's cool how you were like, okay, my daughter's not into riding horses. Like, we can pivot. You know what I mean? Like it.
Would I have been like in heaven at like the ranch?
Of course.
Yes, that's like what I love to do, but that's not what. And I told her recently, like, I mean, this could be a whole other episode, but I told her the same thing. Like, my mood, my happiness, that's not your responsibility. So don't do something, because we just had her try volleyball, because I'm like, we'll do whatever you want, but like, you're not going to be like a little wivwana in the house, like doing nothing. I'm like, I signed her up for, all her cousins play club volleyball. So I signed her up for classes, like not any competition. She doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. I love it. And I'm like, do you love it? Like, I don't want you saying that because you think it's going to make me or your dad happy. Like my happiness is not your responsibility. Like if you're passionate about it, I will 1000% support you, but you have to do what you want to do. And yeah, my daughter doesn't think I'm cool, by the way. I told her, I told her that I want to, because her and my son, I think, are going to be at the same school next year. So I saw they have an open position for a lunch lady. And I'm like, I think I want to apply for the lunch lady position. And someone's like, you want to go be a lunch lady? I'm like, yeah, like I want to be at my kid's school. And my daughter's like, you'll ruin our snack shack. You'll have all the healthy stuff and it won't be fun anymore.
Oh my gosh. That is so funny.
But yeah, she definitely doesn't think I'm a cool mom.
That is, well, I mean, the school would be so lucky to have a lunch person like you.
I don't think the kids would think we were very lucky, but.
And when they got older, maybe they'd appreciate it then. But oh my gosh,
just on like the kid and the health thing. So my son, he's just so cool. You'll have to meet him one day. So he works out every day. He runs cross country. He's like in our garage, like working out with the weights, and he chooses. So it was a long process for us to get him to this point where he didn't want like all this junk food and processed foods. And now he asks me like, is this healthy for me? Is this going to help me grow? Because I think that's another thing, is teaching your kids, like, not just this is a good food or this is a bad food. Like we don't say that, but like, this is going to help your muscles grow. This is protein, or, these carrots are good for your eyes. Just like bringing it down to their level is really huge. So I just wanted to share that. Like,
I love that.
Make food a positive experience with your kids. Like it doesn't need to finish your plate, and, like, just get down to their level. Like, why don't you want to eat this? Like one day my son was eating bean tacos and he wouldn't eat them. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like, why don't you want to eat them? And he's like, they look scary. So then I'm like, why? Just like breaking it down, getting on their level. But yeah, food and kid, like it can be so fun. Like, don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this. Well, Allie, how can we support you? Where can we direct people?
Okay, well, I am Mexish Mommy, Mexish, and then MAMI on Instagram. I only have Instagram. I just don't have the mental capacity for all the other socials. No Facebook. No, I have a TikTok, but I never go on there. I got addicted during like the pandemic, so I'm like, I just need to like not ever go on there again. Yeah, so just on Instagram, and then my podcast is Dish with Mexish, and that is just it's just such a fun project for me. We have all different guests on. I hope you're going to be a guest soon. I need to
I
get
cannot wait. Yes, please.
yeah, it's a fun time. So it's all I hope that on that podcast like there's an episode for everyone. Like I don't think every episode is going to resonate with every person, but we have some fun guests on there. So yeah, just that.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that. Well, thanks to everyone for listening to the Pretty Little Lifters podcast. And I am so grateful for our guest, Allie, for joining us on this episode. And I really appreciate you making the time to chat. And I love your honesty. I love your realness. And I'm so happy you are doing what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
And I will share Allie's info in the show notes so you can support her. And I will talk to you next episode. Bye.